Starstruck.
Well. Welcome to Joyride. I am Jared Brandon Flandy, and
I am Adam Mendenhall.
this is season 3. We're back.
Yes, we are. Ready to go again.
We got lots of new exciting stuff coming up. We got our usual story episodes like we usually do. We also, our new feature for this season is we'll be having some unscripted, just conversational chats about something transportation or automotive related. So I hope you guys look forward to that new feature.
That'll be some good variety. Don't miss out.
Yeah, so how you been doing, Adam? It's been a little bit.
I've been good. It's been a nice summer here, it's been hot, but luckily we've been spared by the fires for the most part, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, I can't complain either. Well, let's see here. The other big news we have for this season is we have some words from our sponsors this time.
Well, let's hear them.
Okay, all right. So first off, we have British Parts Northwest here. I have their ad. So since 1982, British Parts Northwest has been your source for all your British car needs. They have knowledgeable staff who can help you find whatever you need to make sure your car is in the best condition possible. They carry quality parts brands such as Lucas, TRW, and Borg & Beck. British Parts Northwest is based out of the United States, but ships both domestically and internationally and offers same-day shipping as well. You can place your order by phone by calling this number, area code 503-864-2001. That number again is 503-864-2001. You can also place your order online by going to bpnorthwest.com. Remember to spell out the word Northwest. British Parts is celebrating its 40th anniversary by teaming up with the Starstruck Podcast Network to bring you hit shows like Joyride. To claim 10% off on your next online purchase at bpnorthwest.com, use discount code Joyride. That's discount code Joyride. Also, our secondary sponsor, we want to give a shout out to Noah Norwood and his podcast, the Hot Rod Kid Podcast. He brings in guests from all of the automotive community as well as hot rod enthusiasts, and they have a spirited chat about all their things, passionate about that. He also has a restoration business working on anything from classic Mustangs to other classic Fords back during the great V8 era. So we do highly recommend that show. That, once again, is the Hot Rod Kid Podcast that is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. So, Adam, we have, for our story, a very British-themed one once again. And I'd like to point out, since this is a British-themed one, that, of course, the Queen has passed recently. And so we are sad to hear that, obviously. That is something, 70 years on the throne.
Yeah, quite an unprecedented, unrivaled reign, unlike no other. And what an impression that she made upon the world in that time.
I think I was listening to, it was the BBC said that her reign was 25% or a quarter of the lifespan of the United States.
That is just wild to think about. I mean, what a period of time.
But we have a king now, so it is a brave new world. Well,
it is.
Aside from that, sad news, but we do have an exciting story. This one is actually kind of a dedication to my Uncle Larry. He's a listener of the show, and he wanted to hear a train story. But, we just so the listeners know, me and Adam, we do sit down and we figure out what we're going to cover every time we sit down and record these and research and write these. And so we were all up for doing a train story, but we just didn't want to do just like, bits and bolts about how a train works or something like that. We wanted something with a little flavor. So I'd like to call this one, or think of this one as the Ocean's 11 during the Victorian era. So, and the title of this is A Train Story, The Great Gold Robbery. So here we go. Sometimes they are powered by steam. Sometimes they are powered by diesel or electricity. But one thing is for certain, everyone loves trains. For over 200 years, they have carried the vital supplies we need and also carry us as passengers when we need to conveniently travel to our desired destination at a moment's notice. Now, have you ever ridden any trains, Adam?
I only once, and I took a train from Salem, Oregon, from the old historic train hub there up to Tacoma, Washington for a football game. And it was fun. It was during, the weather was permissible and good. It wasn't raining outside, but it was a fun experience.
I never have ridden a train here in North America. I have overseas. I've done the bullet train in Japan. I've done the route from London to Edinburgh. That's not a high-speed train, but it is a nice train. I've gone from Croatia through Hungary through Austria to Germany. And I like Croatia and Hungary, mind you, but trains aren't that phenomenal. I have to be brutally honest. But that's an entirely different episode for another time. So
Yes, it is.
Moving on from that, some of the first steam locomotives were built in the early 1800s, but they were mainly used for industrial applications. So carrying coal, wool, that kind of thing. Shortly afterward, however, railways tailor-made for passenger use would arise. The world's first modern railways were built in Great Britain, starting in the 1820s. The first modern railroad was the Stockton and Darlington Railway, built in 1825.
Quite a lengthy name, by the way.
I bet the guy that ran that, his name was Nigel as well.
I'm sure it was.
But the most widely known railroad was the Liverpool to Manchester Railway, which was completed in 1830. The first highly successful steam locomotive of this period was the Stephenson Rocket, which was built in 1829. How fast do you think it went?
Oh, jeez, it's tough to guess. I'm going to say 50 miles an hour.
Now, keep in mind they call it the Rocket, okay? It traveled at a blistering top speed of 12 miles per hour.
Well, that's an entirely different scale I think most of us are used to, including myself, back then.
That's about 19 miles per hour for other international listeners. In only 20 years between the 1830s and the 1850s, many new railroads were built in Britain. Some of these include the Great Western Railway, which was primarily designed by Isambard Kingdom Brunel, who we covered in our SS Great Britain episode in Season 2. So you remember that one with the big steamboat?
Yes.
Yep. So he did railways, too. He did anything transportation related. He did boats, he did bridges as well. So by the 1850s, locomotives themselves had also improved and could travel at speeds beyond 70 miles per hour now, or about 110 kilometers. Now, mind you, they didn't really know, but from what I've read at the time, because you haven't really gone any faster than like on a horse, or maybe a boat is the fastest thing you've probably been on. But they thought maybe if you went at 50 miles per hour, it might have ill effects on a person's health.
I guess they could only ponder or theorize what might happen, since that was, literally they were breaking new ground.
They literally didn't want women possibly on trains because they thought their uterus might fly out.
The blistering speed.
Can you imagine? It was all these guys just staring at this woman, just waiting to see what happens as the train is 50 miles per hour. I mean, how did they test this?
Yeah, I can only ponder what that looks like. The first time that they tested it, anyways. Yeah.
Another one of these new railroads that was built in Britain was the Southeastern Railway. The SER, as it was commonly known, was known for its London to Folkestone route. Folkestone is a port town on the South English coast, so the SER was a great railway for those who wanted to depart from London in order to catch a boat across the English Channel in order to get to France. So this is obviously, this is in the 19th century. There is no channel tunnel. So your only way you're going to get across the channel is on a boat.
A whole nother level of journey.
Yeah. Because of this, the SER began to be favored by British gold merchants who wanted to send bullion deposits to their French colleagues in Paris. With time, this information began to leak, and it started to attract the attention of the more dishonest members of Victorian society. So you'd think of guys, stovepipe hats, bad teeth, pocket watch, flipping a coin, like on a street, on a gas light. I don't know.
Poor lighting, yeah.
Foggy.
London fog, right?
Fog, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
That is what I envision as well.
Two men, William Pierce and Edward Agar, would end up planning a joyride that truly had never been done before. Their joyride would include stealing the SER gold deposits from a moving train.
Now that's ambitious.
Pierce had been an employee of the SER as a ticket printer, but he was dismissed for apparently gambling instead of printing tickets. Now, I don't know if he's just playing cards with guys, he's running a casino in there, or if it's just the equivalent of you're on Netflix and your boss comes up behind you when you're in your cubicle. I don't know.
Yeah, it just seems like somebody, especially back then, they had such a hard time not finding a way to gamble, or whether it was out in the street or in some sanctioned event. It's
like the oldie thing. What am I saying? It probably was one of the oldie things they had to do.
Yeah, what options did you have, for entertainment, right? It was fairly limited, one or the other.
Let's see here. Since Pierce was now a former employee of the SER, this is how he learned about the gold deliveries through the whispers of other railwaymen, primarily in pubs. Yep.
Of course.
So when you're drinking a bit, the tongue loosens and they're saying things they shouldn't be saying, and he's sitting there overhearing all of this,
Some rather interesting leak of information, yeah.
Agar was already known as a master thief in the criminal underworld of Victorian London. Agar, like Pierce, was in his 30s, but Agar's skills became so well known because he'd been stealing shit since he was 18 years old.
He had a history, but not where you want to have history. Yeah.
And I like how he was a known master thief. That was literally, the how he was described. It's just like, if you're a thief, the last thing you want to be is, you'd think, would be known.
He was popular amongst that inner circle, chat amongst other thieves.
That's probably what it is, an inner circle of thieves, exactly. In time, Pierce relayed this information to his friend Agar, but they initially decided the robbery was impossible to pull off, and they shelved the plan indefinitely. They would meet later, entirely by chance. Guess where?
I'm going to say a pub?
In a pub. And the possibility of the heist became the main topic of discussion again. In 1854, they decided it might be possible to pull it off, but only with extraordinarily careful planning. There had been an earlier failed attempt to rob a train from the Great Western Railway, and consequently security aboard trains had increased considerably. Because of this, Pierce and Agar learned they would need two separate keys in order to open the safes that contained the gold aboard the SER train.
Of course.
They eventually concluded they cannot simply steal the keys, since that would cause suspicion of a potential robbery. So, they go there, there's no keys, they're like, something's up, obviously, so you can't just take them. The thieves came to the conclusion they would have to temporarily steal the keys, make wax impressions in order to make copies, and return the original keys before anyone at the railway would notice. Due to this difficulty, Pierce and Agar spent a lot of time doing spy work to find out where the keys were hidden. Pierce and Agar now realized they would not be able to pull off the job on their own. They'd have to bring in accomplices. Enter James Burgess and William George Tester.
Ooh.
Now, that's something you don't see anymore, is someone demanding that you refer to them by their full name.
Yes, that custom's been lost. Yeah.
Now it's just well, it went Madonna maybe started that.
Maybe. Elvis maybe.
Elvis,
Yeah. They're all guilty.
Yep. Burgess was a guard aboard the train, and Tester worked in the company offices. Since both men worked for the SCR, they were able to provide important inside information regarding how the company transported the gold. Even though Pierce and Agar now had these inside accomplices, there was still the problem of acquiring the safe keys in order to make copies of them. Fortunately for the thieves, Lady Luck would be on their side. One of the men who possessed one of the keys at the time was a captain of a boat service to France. His name? Captain Mold.
What kind of a name?
Just like you leave what you get on your bread when you leave it out for too long.
Well, anyone that spends time on a ship too long is more familiar than they'd like to admit with that name.
Now I can just imagine this guy. I mean, he's aptly named. He's probably about 92 years old, probably beard down to his waist, smoking a pipe. So Captain Mold is really appropriate when you probably think about it.
That is when you do think about it.
Now, unfortunately for Captain Mold, he managed to lose the key that was given to him for safekeeping. I don't know. I don't know.
Where did it go?
So the SCR entrusted an employee with the responsibility of having a new key made. As luck would have it, this was William George Tester. So he didn't even have to steal the key. They gave it to him. I mean, unknowingly, but they just handed it to the thief. So Tester was given access to the original keys. And one day, he found the opportunity to temporarily remove them. He not only took the keys that had to be replaced, but he managed to take both of the original keys and met Pierce and Agar.
At a pub?
At a pub.
Just a guess, but...
in order to make the wax impressions. There's one problem, however. Since Tester was so nervous when he took the keys, he did not realize until he got to the pub that he did not take two separate keys, but two duplicates of the same key.
Ooh.
In other words, they still needed the last key. I'm sure he got slapped on the back of the head quite a bit that night.
No doubt.
And I'm sure the drinks were on him on top of it.
Naturally.
They'd also spend many hours at the Folkestone station trying to find out as much as they could about how secure cargo was transported. Despite the considerable amount of time doing this, they did not learn much. Consequently, Agar thought they should take a more hands-on approach. He decided to send 200 pounds of his own money through the SCR service. He would check with the company on a daily basis, and as a result, he learned a lot about how the gold was transported between the stations. So what he's doing is he's essentially, it's kind of like when you order something on Amazon and you go and track the package. You know, there's no internet, but he's going to a clerk and asking where his money is at during its delivery process. So they're going, every day he's going, okay, where's it at now? Where's it at now? Where's it at now? And so the railroad is inadvertently giving him the exact route of how they transport the gold.
Without even realizing it.
Without even realizing it. So he has a complete map of what's going on now, essentially.
Ingenious.
Let's see here, just a moment. Also because of this information, he managed to deduce where the all-important last key was probably kept. Despite Tester's blunder, when Agar was making inquiries involving the delivery of his 200 pounds, he and Pierce were able to snag the last key. They did this by stealthily removing it when a railway clerk was not looking. They quickly made an impression and returned the key before anyone noticed. So very sleight of hand.
That is sleight of hand.
Master thief kind of stuff. So copies were then made from the wax impressions, and Agar would regularly board the train with the help of Burgess to test the newly made keys. Eventually, they managed to make them work perfectly with the safes. So that part of that was a long and strenuous part of the operation, but they figured that out now. That all works. Well, there were a couple other problems that still had to be worked out, however. One problem was the boxes that contained the gold were weighed regularly during transport to make sure all was accounted for. The thieves had a plan, though. They acquired a considerable amount of lead shot, which they would use to fill the boxes and weigh them again until they matched the original weight of the gold. Does that make sense?
It does. It's interesting how common that seemed to be back then, or at least it's been referenced in many movies.
Yeah, I know. And they use lead for everything.
Yeah.
Do you remember, was it the Indiana Jones movie? I think it was Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. He gets in that refrigerator and they do a close-up. It says lead line.
Yep. Yeah, clearly going, well, that's why he survived.
Yeah. The thieves had a plan, though. I'm sorry, I read that. The thieves also acquired leather bags and carpet bags that were similar to the ones that the SER guards used to transport the gold from the vaults to the safes on the train. With these problems solved, intelligence work completed, and copies of the keys made, they were now ready to commit the heist. The final step was all down to Burgess. The SER did not transport the same amount of gold on every delivery, so the culprits decided they would only rob the train when there was a significant amount worth stealing. Oh, totally logical. Pierce and Agar made routine trips to the London Bridge station where the train departed. The plan was they would commence the robbery when Burgess gave the signal, letting him know it was worth it. He would do this by tipping his hat and wiping his face. And I hope that they didn't misinterpret him just swatting at a fly or something like that.
No, hopefully not. You got to look for it. That's the sign.
It's usually always something that's stupid that just derails something when you think about it. Anyway, on May 15th, 1855, Burgess would do exactly this, and the heist was on. In a professional and calculated manner, Pierce and Agar boarded the train. Pierce purchased a first-class ticket and calmly took his seat on the train. Of course, he chose the most conspicuous train car he could. I don't know, maybe there was a practical reason. That maybe it was closer to where the gold was kept. I don't know, but that easily could have been, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that would make more sense if it was. Otherwise, I mean, really kind of flaunting it there, just because you can.
Agar, with the help of Burgess, was able to enter the guard van and was hidden beneath a pair of overalls. I hope to God those were clean.
Victorian era?
Victorian sanitation was not exactly phenomenal. In a great billow of smoke and a whistle screaming, the mighty steam locomotive departed London Bridge Station and was on its way. Once Agar thought it was safe to leave his hiding place, he quickly got to work. The copied keys worked as planned, and the heavy safe doors swung open. Agar started removing the metal bands that encased the containers. And in some boxes, there was gold bars, gold ingots, and even American gold eagles, which was a type of American bullion back then.
Jeez, loaded.
Loaded with gold. When the train stopped at Red Hill Station, Tester met them there, and they stealthily gave him some of the bags containing the loot. Tester promptly returned to the SER offices in order to provide an alibi for himself, because he still works for the railroad. So
he's thought it through.
Mm-hmm. The train continued on. Pierce eventually left his first-class car and joined Burgess and Agar in the guard van to help. They emptied the remaining gold from the safes and put it in the bags. They also managed to damage one of the boxes when breaking into it, but they repaired it as best they could. I'm also assuming this is where they put their lead shot into to make sure the boxes weighed the same. They swiftly cleaned up the mess they made and made sure everything looked the way it was before they began their work. When the train reached the coast, Pierce and Agar departed the train with the bags containing the gold concealed underneath their heavy cloaks. Now, they do have an advantage in this era. They wear all this big, heavy clothing. I mean, it was easier to sneak things back then.
Oh, far easier. I mean, the skinny jeans of today, right? A little lackluster in comparison.
Well, no one wants... I mean, skinny jeans, you usually see them transporting things you don't want to anyway.
Exactly.
So, let alone gold bars.
Yeah, you didn't have the pocket capacity like they had.
So, what was it that... Remember those most interesting man in the world commercials?
Yes.
One of them was, I'm paraphrasing here, but he goes, gentlemen, if I could see the change in leave the tight pants to the ladies. If I could see the change in your pants, you need to pay for a tailor.
Well spoken. Yep.
Let's see here. So they disposed of the evidence, that being the key and tools they used, by throwing them into the English Channel. With the robbery completed and the evidence disposed of, the thieves confidently stopped to celebrate by having a drink in a pub.
Where else would you go?
There's no such thing as restaurants, apparently, or a coffee shop,
Everything
or a tea house.
is a pub.
All in all, they managed to steal 200 pounds of gold in weight, which was worth over 12,000 pounds in money at the time. In 2022, that would be worth more than 1.3 million pounds, 1.6 million euros, or currently 1.7 million American dollars.
That's a nice little haul.
No, it's not like someone robs a convenience store and they're set for 2 days. No. You're set for a while. Yep.
Yeah, especially back then, considering.
After their drinking and celebrating, the thieves split the money between them and departed ways. A couple of years passed, and surprisingly, most of the culprits invested their money wisely. Some of them invested in breweries and bonds, while Pierce started a new gambling establishment. In many ways, it was the perfect crime. It was planned with precision, no one was hurt, and everyone made a considerable amount of money. In the end, the thieves would have gotten away with it all if it had not been for a series of unfortunate events, poor decisions, and petty behavior. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
After the robbery, Agar temporarily was no longer involved with his girlfriend, Fanny. Now, that just sounds like a funny name to us, but I know our British listeners are trying their best not to laugh their ass off right now, because that means something else.
Naturally, yeah, that's an entirely different meaning across the pond.
So, he began a relationship with a teenage prostitute instead. You know, what are you going to do?
I guess.
There's no Tinder.
Yeah. You know, I guess it was probably commonplace back then.
Probably more than you think.
Yeah, it wasn't as striking as it is today.
Agar began to loan money to her pimp, and when he went to collect the money that was owed to him, he was quickly arrested for lending fraud. So none of the prostitution stuff was put in question. It was lending fraud. So
no, they could care less about the prostitution. No, that lending, though.
It's like Al Capone and tax evasion, you know?
Yeah.
Agar was tried in court and was sentenced to Newgate Prison. Agar was aware of the fact that Fanny had conceived a child with him, so he called upon his old friend Pierce to look after his family by providing them with Agar's share of the money from the train robbery. Pierce would comply with this for a while, but when Fanny began to become difficult, Pierce broke his promise by no longer providing Agar's family with any more money. So, due to a considerable amount of spite, Fanny went to Newgate, where Agar was being held, and began to inform a Mr. Weatherhead of the details of the train robbery. How more Victorian can you get? Mr. Weatherhead.
That is absolutely classic.
At first, Mr. Weatherhead did not believe her story because of the ridiculous nature of the crime.
It's like, what are you trying to tell me,
lady?
Come on. I don't have time for this.
So, soon, however, he began to listen to her. Due to her knowledge of the sophistication of the robbery, Weatherhead quickly assumed she was telling the truth due to the amount of information that only an insider would know. When Agar learned what Pierce had done, he decided to help Fanny by confessing to the crime himself. In a short amount of time, Pierce, Burgess, and Tester were all arrested and brought in for questioning. They were all brought before court to stand trial, with the notable exception of Agar, since he was already incarcerated for the other unrelated crime. Burgess and Tester were both sentenced to 14 years transportation, and what that means is it meant living as a prison laborer in an Australian penal colony. So it was not considered a great sentence, but it was considered a lighter sentence. Pierce was given an even lesser sentence since he was no longer an employee of the SER during the time of the robbery, but he was still sentenced to 2 years hard labor in England.
Oh, jeez.
Even though Burgess and Tester were given such long sentences, they were both given return tickets to England in the late 1850s and early 1860s. Most likely they were allowed to return home early due to good behavior. So the thing with that is, this was, they did a bad thing. They robbed a train, but aside from the people they robbed from, it was essentially a victimless crime,
Yeah, in that world back then it was. They weren't killing people, but nonetheless, highly illegal.
Yeah. Not much is known to what happened to Pierce after he finished his sentence. Not much is known about Agar either, other than he traveled to Sri Lanka at some point after he was released from prison. Most of the money from the robbery was never recovered.
Ooh, interesting.
Now, from what I've read, there is, at this point anyway, no documented evidence of a legit treasure map. Like one of those stereotypical ones where it's like X marks the spot. But despite that, there's plenty of stolen loot and treasure that has never been found.
That's what's so fascinating. You hear tales like this, and where it has grounded documentation of events, yet we're left with mystery in the end of where is that? Where did it end up? We can only wonder.
Oh, we can only wonder. So, some called the Great Gold Robbery of 1855 one of the great crimes of the century. Alas, as daring as it was, all of the criminals involved received their just punishment and even eventually paid their debt to society. Even though their intentions were bad, these boys certainly experienced an exciting joyride. Just remember, if you're planning a joyride in the future, make sure it's for fun and not to become a part of the undesirable world of crime. And that is the end of our story, Adam.
Well, again, what a tantalizing tale, but we're left with what if, what happened? A little bit of mystery again in the end.
What happened if they hadn't got caught either?
Yeah.
Which reminds me, a kind of segue from that, we sometimes talk about if there's, movies that are based upon this or kind of have some, or, that do tell the tale a little bit. There is. It's a movie called, I believe it's the Great Train Robbery. And it was based upon a novel by Michael Crichton, who was of Jurassic Park fame later. But they made a movie in the 70s that he also directed that had Sean Connery and Donald Sutherland as Pierce and Agar. I don't remember who was Pierce and Agar, but they played both of them nonetheless. It's a good movie, but the thing with it is that it's very fictionalized. I think the book was too. They get the basics of it right, but they embellish a lot and put more action in it. So it's not exactly, if you do watch it, it's not as quite as a historical telling as what we just said, but nonetheless, it's still a very good movie. It's got Sean Connery and Donald Sutherland in it.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
And some of those older ones are, especially entertaining today, considering the time that they were representing.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that? So that being our first episode of season 3.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that one worked for you?
Yep.
I hope that worked for everyone else. Hope everyone enjoyed that. Do you have any other concluding statements, Adam, before we finish up here?
Well, just want to entice people that, hey, think about things that are unsolved. And there's a lot of mystery out there still. But nonetheless, the history that goes with it.
Exactly. And we'd appreciate good likes. We always like those, of course. Another thing else that could help us out quite a bit is if you could preferably leave a nice comment about our show. That does help us get out there and help us get our show known. So that would be of great benefit if you could do that for us. So with that said, I think we're going to wrap up, and we will meet again for the next episode.
We'll see you in the next one.
All right, everyone. Signing out.
Starstruck.